Good morning, class. Sorry I'm late. Trying to get some coffee. It's a little bit cold. You understand? All right. Funny story. This morning, a student emailed me and was quite a bit mad about the way that I'm conducting my class. And it was a rather civil discussion, but I noticed in their reasoning that they had a few holes, which is highly irrelevant to today's topic, which is, if you turn to page 54 in your textbooks, I'm not kidding, actually do it, we are talking today about logical fallacies. Now, conflict is inevitable in any social setting. It's going to happen. Now, conflict doesn't always mean that we hate each other. It just means that we have differences in opinions, views, and we have to sort those out and learn how to coexist. Let's see. And as people argue in a rhetorical sense of the word, they have to use various methods of persuasion to convince their opponent to come to their side, or to agree with their side, or at least coexist with their side. And while people try to convince one another to do something, or to work to counter those persuasions themselves, it's possible to make an argument that has flaws. And yeah, that sounds obvious. Anything can have flaws in it. But when it comes time to defend a claim, there is a lot that can go wrong without even realizing that you've done anything wrong. We see logical fallacies in politics, the media, and even within ourselves. Trying to reason with ourselves, we can have these logical fallacies. And it's a very broad topic, but we're going to talk about 5 examples today that will cover, I think, a broad spectrum of some of the most common. And when we work with these fallacies, we're talking about a failure to satisfy logos, which is your appeal and adherence to logic. It's the baby of math and communication, really. So let's take a look at a few different let's take a look at a few common different arguments and see if we can determine what it is that they've done wrong.
That damn Obama, man. All us pulling out for the job is done.
It's about time he brought the boys home.
Boy, anyone that doesn't support our troops must really hate America.
I'm just tired of seeing all my tax dollars go to nothing.
All right, class, so what happened there? All right, good. The Southern gentleman employed a straw person fallacy by suggesting that by not supporting the troops, the other man must absolutely hate America. He forced the other man to contend with a point that isn't even relevant to the argument. The straw person fallacy is committed when a person simply ignores a person's actual position and substitutes a distorted, exaggerated, or misrepresented version of that argument. Straw person arguments are among the most common, and they're often done without the culprit realizing that they've even used the fallacy. This tactic can work on opponents or audiences who are not paying close attention, as the person using this fallacy wins the argument, even though it's a fake argument. Some iterations of the fallacy are easy to spot, like the video we just saw. Sometimes, however, the fallacy can go easily unnoticed. And when that happens, people often get swept under the rug. It just becomes a pathological argument in that you win the argument no matter what the original argument was. So long as you beat the opponent, you win, whatever it happens to be. So just remember that bringing in a new point or idea to an argument is not bad, but the content must be relevant to the main point. So let's take a look at another example.
Come in. Hey, what can I help you with?
It's just really bothered me that lately I feel like everything we do in your class is like centered around evolution, and I feel like it's really one-sided. I mean, if you're going to teach evolution, why not teach something like intelligent design too?
Okay. Why would I accommodate that when there's no real proof that intelligent design is a real theory? Is that all you needed today?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so how about this one? All right, good. Besides the professor's bad attitude, he had some problems with his reasoning with the student. I'm not saying that her argument was particularly strong or weak. We're going to focus on the professor's argument for this situation. He used what's called an argument from ignorance because he used the lack of supporting evidence for the theory of creationism in order to denounce it. Another way to think about this is if you have an opponent who can't prove their position right, but they feel strongly about it, and you shoot them down because they don't have the proof, you're using an argument from ignorance. It's tricky sometimes because it can be associated with an opponent who just doesn't have a platform. They don't have evidence, they don't have proof, they really don't have an argument. So it can be easy to confuse this with just denouncing a lack of an argument, rather than a lack of support for the argument. So it's important to remember the difference between that. Now, this fallacy, again, the argument from ignorance, it creates a stalemate in the argument, especially when both parties use it. Neither party is advancing their own position because their argument is that the other is invalid. It shrivels basically into a slap fight of opponents focusing on the faults in each other's arguments rather than actually trying to support their own. And most frequently, and this is probably what you thought about when I was describing it, you'll find this tactic used with the topic of religion. And you've probably experienced it yourself. I'd be very surprised if anybody in this room had not. Any situation that deals with contesting opinions is prone to this fallacy and the trap associated with it. Sometimes to each his own is the best retort. And this situation also comes about when people try to assign the burden of proof, a concept in which one of the representatives is responsible for providing actual proof to contest dominance within a pre-existing idea. For example, it's sometimes said that atheists have the burden of proof to prove that God does not exist. Otherwise, God must exist. And the same is said for the opposite side of the coin. Christians, for example, have the burden of proof to prove that God does exist. Otherwise, the atheists say he cannot exist. So without proof, both sides are really just butting heads and not getting anywhere at all. So let's take a look at another example.
I can't do this.
Should have paid attention in class.
Your last name is Rodriguez. You already know Spanish, right?
Estás un poquito loca en la cabeza, chica.
What? Come on, help me.
You think I know Spanish just because I'm half Hispanic? Not okay.
Okay, sorry. I'll do it on my own. You're smart, right?
All right, so a little bit of racism to start off the day. And believe it or not, that actually came from the class right before yours, so this didn't happen too long ago. So, again, what happened? Very good. Hook, line, and sinker. Very obvious, this one. It shouldn't take very long to describe this one. The fallacy strikes me as perhaps the most common. I mean, we all know this. We've all seen it. We deal with it on a daily basis for sure. And there are many names, but we typically refer to it as a sweeping generalization or hasty generalization. And for the sake of formality, let's define it. A person commits this fallacy when they take localized observations and expand them to a broad scale without extending the base reasoning. Another way of thinking about this is everyone I work with here has at least a master's degree. Does every teacher in the United States have a master's degree? Well, I doubt it. And I can't logically conclude anything based solely on what I know here. This is the key fallacy used in making and using stereotypes to judge, label, and navigate around people. Allow me to play the devil's advocate. It's common, although not guaranteed, that people raised in Hispanic homes are at least more likely to know Spanish. Because of that, the female student was more likely to approach the male student for academic support. Sounds quite harmless when you put it that way, but it can become very easy to rely on the sweeping generalization when trying to make broad decisions. When in doubt, don't use your personal experience alone. This is the reason we have you do research. Even if you know for a fact that something is true, you cannot validate yourself. That's what this fallacy is. Actually, I got a call from my brother earlier, my twin brother, about a situation that happened at a classroom that he's taking, trying to get his own degree. So, let's use that as an example. Let's take a look. Hey.
Busy.
I only need a minute to get like a signature.
Really busy.
Like really important. Come on.
How important?
Okay. I got this petition that I'm working on. And if I get enough people to sign it, we can get gay marriage legalized in Texas.
Doesn't affect me. Not important to me.
But come on, all I need is a signature.
You can ask someone else, man.
It won't hurt you at all. Come on.
Doesn't get me anything either.
You have to have a position in this.
Yeah, it's the position of, this doesn't affect me.
Oh my God. Come on, you don't have the option but to help me or to hurt me. Pick one.
Well, you put it like that, it's gonna be hurt you. I'll let you get back to my work.
All right, class, so another obvious one. What happened there? You got it. The student who refused to sign the petition had a perfectly good reason not to, but my brother didn't give him that option. He left him with a black and white scenario of help him or hurt him, and the other student was unfortunately forced to either go extremely supportive or extremely hurtful. And, well, when you have to make a choice, sometimes hurting is the only option, especially when you are given this fallacy. It's closely related to a tactic in negotiation called the ultimatum, which locks down the argument right then and forces the opponent by threat of violence often to make a decision for better or worse. Both of these will take out the needed middle ground in an argument, the gray area that a lot of people tend to reside in. And this fallacy is called bifurcation. Bi like LGBT, fur like an animal, cat like meow, and ion like that thing in science. Or more commonly, known as either or. The person using this fallacy hands the opponent, just like the ultimatum, two options, forces them to make a decision in the moment. It's, again, very extreme, and it often causes damage even outside the argument. So it's best to avoid these over all of them. All right, so let's recap. According to your book, a fallacy is what? Come on. It's an error in reasoning. Sorry, class. We took a look at a few of my favorites, the straw man, the argument from ignorance, the sweeping generalization, and finally the bifurcation, or either or. I picked these because they're not only everyday, but they have influence outside of the arguments they found in. Some of them damage relationships. Some of them shape our worldviews. One of them shuts down the government twice. So, class, next time you're trying to convince somebody or something or have an argument, make sure you do so without employing these fallacies. You'll be much more effective the fewer fallacies you have. And it doesn't stop with just these 5. There are hundreds of fallacies. Oh, okay, it's almost time to go. That was without a doubt the longest hour of my life. All right, so before you go, remember to turn your essays in by Sunday and finish your discussion posts over logical fallacies. Bring me good examples of ones that I didn't cover Monday for extra credit. Stay warm and drive safe. See you next week.